Hello, this is Steve Fretzin. I'm here with Fred Tannenbaum with Gould & Radnor. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Steve?
Good. I want to thank you for meeting with me and giving me an opportunity to interview this morning.
Pleasure is all mine.
Wonderful. Well, let's jump right in. Do me a favor and just take a minute or so and describe your legal background leading up to your current role with the firm.
I started the firm when dinosaurs ruled the earth.
Okay.
So we're multi-dimensional business advisors, so we do a lot of different things, just as clients do a lot of different things. If you ask a client, what do you do? They don't say, well, I'm in the finance industry. No, they say, I'm in the food industry. I happen to do finance. So we've taken that holistic advisory role, just like a client thinks of themselves holistically working for a food company. We think of ourselves working for a law business, so it's good to know a lot of things about a lot of things, and you can speak to clients' language a lot easier.
Okay, and let me ask you that. To that point, was there a time that you remember, either a specific time or age range where you sort of realized how important that was, not only being a good business person, but also maybe a business developer, and realizing how you had to grow a practice versus just sort of take other people's work and maintain it?
As you know, the law industry has evolved from manna coming from heaven, we're coming over the transom, to what am I going to eat for today? So there wasn't any great epiphany. Our firm was actually blessed because we had a client, still have the client, but at one point they were probably 80% of our business.
Oh, wow.
Which is great because it's great work and really challenging.
Yeah.
Great receivable. On the other hand, they can walk out and fire us tomorrow. So that got me thinking. Number one. Number two, when there are people on the other side of deals or referral sources, whatever, and they call you, you get the idea, maybe I should answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so it wasn't developing business was not it started off as ancillary, and it's almost like natural gas is to developing oil. We develop oil, but natural gas is a byproduct of oil, just as new business is a byproduct of working on our existing business. So you do a good job, client refers more work, people on the other side, tick them off too much, and so it became a natural. And then from there you say, well, this isn't so bad. If work comes in without trying, except for doing my day-to-day job, trying, I might as well just take it on the road, and see how I can affirmatively, actively try to develop business.
Okay. And so what do you, as you see the legal industry today, even in the last maybe 10 or 15 years, what are some of the main changes that you're seeing in the legal industry?
A lot of changes, some for the better, some not for the better.
Okay.
Certainly for the better for the client. The client has always been demanding because they're the client and they pay the bill. But the client is a lot more sophisticated, than they used to be. The client is much more demanding in terms of time for delivery and in terms of budget, for delivery. At the same time, the work, while the client's getting more sophisticated, the work, that's on the demand side. On the supply side, there's so much more competition from not just law firms and other lawyers, but from ancillary type services such as LegalZoom and
sure.
things like that, and competition from clients. In the quote unquote old days of like 5 years ago, a client would say, "Hey, can you draft a private placement memo, or can you draft a letter of intent or something?" They still ask that, but a lot of them will say, "Hey, I took your last draft, and this is what I did for this deal. Can you look it over?" So something that may have taken 10 hours will now take an hour or two.
Right.
So that's affected, the supply of services as well.
Okay. How about from a business development? I think you made a statement earlier about how things came from heaven and just good things, because we had big clients and the business just sort of rolled downhill. And I think today with that competition, there's a lot of attorneys that are out there that are trying to get that piece of the pie, and it's become smaller and smaller. Do you have advice that you typically give to younger attorneys or up-and-coming attorneys within your firm about how to manage building a book of business?
Sure, yeah. There's a lot of advice from training courses, people like yourself, people like we have an in-house person, and people like me, but it all starts with a plan.
Okay.
I think General Eisenhower didn't invade France without a plan, and that plan was not one-dimensional. That plan, right? If the Allies had invaded Normandy and just had planes, it probably wouldn't do very well.
Yeah.
If they just had boats, it probably wouldn't do very well. If it just had troops, it probably wouldn't do very well. So I suggest people take a step back and say, what are your goals? And within the context of those goals, what do you got? So what do you got to offer? What is your unique selling proposition, if you will? What is your message, if you will? If you're going to the top of the Willis Tower, what's your elevator speech? If you're going into the 8th floor where we are, what is your speech? And more important than necessarily what do you have to sell and offer, what does the client want? Mm-hmm. And so clearly every client's different, so you got to tailor your message to the client. And then, fine, so we've determined what your goals are, we've determined what you've got, then how are you going to get this message out? And so I suggest that people look at things from an active and from a passive way.
Okay. Is there something, so I understand that a plan is critical, and I'm right on board. I usually talk about, when I work with attorneys, the 3 Ps. I have 3 Ps. You've one at least, and I've got a couple extras that you probably agree with. Number 1 is a plan. You got to have a plan, like you said, the GPS. Number 2 is a process. What are the processes that you're going to go through to walk a client or potential client through a buying decision, or meet someone at a strategic partner lunch or something like that? And then the last piece is the last part that you did, which is performance improvement. How are you progressing? How are you improving and learning from what's happening around you? And I think most people go through a year or even 10 years and not really improve something and wonder why things haven't gotten better. Right. And so I follow those 3 Ps pretty religiously, and you've already hit 2 of them. So and the middle P is that you mentioned, the process is really important, and that's kind of tied to the plan, because you lay out just how it's done, and you lay out to the client some unique selling proposition or value proposition, I should say, that should inure their benefit. Yeah, and I think there's a lack of, and I'm not going to put this as a broad statement across the board, but there's a lack of proper expectations, I think, being set by attorneys. There's no expectations being set. So when someone is not laying the groundwork of what's going to happen and when it's going to be in and how things are going to work, and the client may have expectations of this and you're coming in here, things fall apart. But if you set clear expectations here and you know what has to be hit, and there's accountability, then I think you have a much better chance of making the client happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I mean by on time, on budget.
Right.
You got to just be upfront. When do you want this? And they always say as soon as possible, right? But what does that mean? Does that mean 10 minutes ago, or does that mean 10 hours from now? What does it mean? And then at least everybody's upfront with that.
Well, let me ask you this, because that brings up a very interesting point. I think statistically, it's 6 times harder to get new business than to keep an existing client. Statistically, one of the things that I'd love to get your take on is, how do you, because the person that introduced us talked about you in such a light and loyalty and everything.
I still owe him that check.
Right, you got to send him that check right away. But I think that just in meeting you for a brief amount of time, I get the feeling that there's something that you're doing with your clients to ensure a long-term relationship, that they're not going to go somewhere else because of a price point or because of something, that you've got something that you're doing that's really sticky. And I'm just curious to know, what are maybe 1 or 2 things that you're doing that other attorneys could emulate relating to how you... It
helps to have pictures. in so many relationships, service-oriented relationships, there's you can be part of the team or just a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
In so many relationships, lawyers are looked at as a necessary evil. I'll check it with the legal, So what I try to do with clients, if it's possible, is, one, show the truth, which is I care. So take an interest in the person if they're willing to let you in, but take an interest in the person's business and the person on a personal level. And at the same time, the meter's not running. So you make an investment in that person. You're making an investment not necessarily in the transaction, but in the relationship. And if they see that this person's not in this system, they'll this file and get $20,000 or whatever it is, but they're in this not for $20,000 but 20 years. I think there's a different paradigm. You are a member of the team, and you're not just on the outside looking in. So if you can inculcate that and embody that, you can get in the around the table with the client. They feel that you have a sincere, genuine affection for them and their process and what they're doing, and you just want to be part of the team. I think that makes it easier for them to work with you.
Well, but I think that also shows just a tremendous amount of team play and relationship when you don't have a meter running and you're able to recognize, as you said earlier, investing in the relationship, not just the transaction, right, and how that comes back tenfold
right.
to you.
Yeah, what I've also done is, which I think, I'm not sure how regularly it's done, is I've got a database of my contacts.
Okay.
And then I segment the database by particular industries or countries. So if somebody's from France, I've got a bunch of people in France. I've got media and entertainment, real estate, telecom, venture capital, private equity, internet related, just a whole, it's probably 30, 35 now of different segments. So then I will see an article I just sent something out yesterday about what they call net neutrality, which is a big issue in regulating wireless carriers. And and I just sent it out to there's probably 100 or 200 people on that list.
Okay.
And they see, hey, Fred's on top of this. And what illustrated to me, so it's amazing how often I'll get a reply saying, hey, thanks for sending this to me. I was just thinking about this. Hey, you want to do lunch? Or, hey, I forwarded this to somebody, and and they got your name now. Or I walked into a cocktail party at a trade show for the cellular telephone industry a few years ago, and because of the internet and how these articles can clog our server, I usually time it so it goes out at 11 and 12 at night, so it doesn't clog the server when people are doing real work. So invariably people get it at all hours of the night. So anyway, so I walked into this party and I saw one of the guys that I know from some bank, and he introduced me to the bank president. He says, here's Fred, he's the hardest working person in telecom.
There's sometimes situations where a client will make a good introduction and introduce you a certain way and move you around, and this is the best lawyer, and et cetera, et cetera. Are there other times, you may not have had to do this or thought about, I don't know, but to be a little more proactive, because not every client thinks about referring their attorney on a regular basis, yet they should be, because they know a lot of people, or because there's a lot of people that you can help the way you've helped them. Have you come up with language, or do you ever step up and say to a client, look, I know you have relationships over here, should I be talking with them, or do you feel that that's over a boundary?
I know some people say that's a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. I remember I have a great dentist.
Okay.
I have a great stockbroker. Both of them said to me at one point, hey, I could use more patients or clients. And I was a little, on the one hand, sure, you're great at what you do. Yeah, I want to help you. And yeah, sure, absolutely. On the other hand, I try to put myself in the client's position and how I would feel and how I did feel on those occasions, and feel, one, don't you love me?
Right.
So the client should feel they're the most special.
Yes.
And number one, number two, the client's going to say, wait, so you're not going to, I'm not going to come first anymore, or you're not going to have time. You're going to be spending more time on that person,
right,
than on me. And thirdly, oh, you don't have enough to do. So
well, maybe if we step back and look at it from a different perspective, because you obviously, you've been practicing many years and you have a very nice base and everything. I think for younger up and coming attorneys that maybe only have 5 or 10 clients, a concern that I know they have is how hard it is to find a new client, and that sometimes the lowest hanging fruit is the people that already know you do good work.
Yeah. Well, look, I empathize, 100%, and some of your best clients are your existing clients or referrals. The art is to have them volunteer, not because one of the things is they have to feel that you're going to get more work from them, and they're going to get referrals from them if they feel you're a sincere part of the team and you're not just using them to get somebody else. So that's a real gift, to be able to go to somebody and say, hey, let me introduce. So what I've done is I've said, I've just waited for opportunities.
The attorney out there that's a solo or a senior associate that's looking to take that next step to get their book from 200 to 400 or 400 to 800 or something like that, is there advice that you routinely hand out to your partners to kind of help explain how they're going to do that and what it's going to take?
Yeah, I said there's a book called
Sales Free Selling by the author Steve Fretzin.
Steve Fretzin is
talk to him, right?
He is the genius. Yes, hire him. I mean, and it all goes back to the last half hour or so. Have a plan.
Yeah.
You just outline your goal. If your goal is to get from 200 to 400 or 600 to 800, whatever your goal is, make sure it's a realistic goal. Have a time frame for that goal so you don't kill yourself, and be interesting. Have something to say. I mean, there are people who say, "Give me business because I want it." Like, huh? What?
Yeah. Is that how that works?
Yeah, is that how that works? Yeah. Or I hear people saying, we do this, and this. And I'm like, really? Who doesn't? So that's what I kind of tell people. You're trying to go from 200 to 400, do it in a smart way, a methodical way, trying to figure out. You don't have to sell them everything, just figure out what they want and sell them that.
Right. Okay. Well, wonderful. Fred, I want to thank you for your time. I got some great tips to share with people, and I wish you much luck and I look forward to hearing good things. Good.